The construction industry can be a tough business to crack. From cash flow problems, struggling to find skilled labour, and not making enough money for your efforts leaves many business owners feeling frustrated and burnt out. But when you get the business strategy right, it's an industry that can be highly satisfying and financially rewarding. I'm here to give you the resources to be able to create a construction business that gives you more time, more freedom, and more money. This is the Develop Your Construction Business podcast, and I'm your host, Greg Wilkes. So today's podcast is something a little bit different for my listeners, and I know you're going to absolutely love it. Now, often on the podcast, we talk about business performance and the best strategies to put in place for helping your construction business thrive. But today we're going to completely shift tactics, because today is all going to be about you. Not so much about your business, but about you as an individual. How can we get you performing at your absolute best? Because if we can master that, if we can get you performing at your best, then naturally that's going to have a really positive effect on the rest of your construction business. And to help us with this today, I've got a guest from all over, virtually from the other side of the world, from the Gold Coast, Australia. That's Vinnie Vecchio. Am I pronouncing your surname right, Vinnie?
Vecchio.
Vecchio, sorry, mate.
No, you're right.
Mine sounded more Italian. I think mine sounded a bit better.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Vinnie, it's great to have you here with us today. So, Vinnie, maybe you could do a brief introduction on who you are, who do you help.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me on as well. Basically, I'm Vinnie. I have been health coaching for about 5 years now. Previously been running my own, in Melbourne. I was originally from Melbourne, running my own in-person training business for quite some time. But then as I moved interstate, obviously into the Gold Coast now, I moved more towards the online space, and then eventually prioritizing and primarily coaching tradesmen only with their health. Basically with the tradesman health coaching, it's quite an interesting, I suppose, start and story, which I will get into though. But basically this started in the Unstoppable Tradesman is the program I run, the health coaching program. And that started in August last year. So I think about 9 months ago. And then initially, I'll be honest, it was just the idea at first was to bridge the gap or fill the gap more so between tradesmen and health, because I found that was something that was, I suppose, missed and lacking within the industry. So that was essentially a gap that I just wanted to fill. And I'll admit, at first, it may have started with, let's just say, superficial solutions such as weight loss, looking better naked, for example, increasing energy, all that type of stuff, the simple things that people want. But with the first 5 people that entered the program, I discovered something quite, I think, profound at first, but I'm also extremely grateful for that occurring. And that was with those first 5 people, they all had 5 very various challenges that they experienced. One fool opened up to me and said that he tried committing suicide. Another one mentioned that he had suicidal thoughts. Another one was on antidepressants. Another one was high levels of anxiety. So that aspect alone, I was like, okay, this is something a lot more than just, let's say, weight loss, physique stuff. This is a whole nother level. And that's when the program completely evolved into not just the superficial stuff, but also just physique, physical health, and mental health, which is ultimately providing tradesmen with something very unique and very special that they probably, I suppose, won't be provided anywhere else, because there's not much in the market or in the health space specifically targeted for them.
Yeah.
So
that's brilliant. I mean, that's why we got you on, Vinnie, because obviously it's a high pressure business being in this industry. I mean, obviously all business is high pressure. But there seems to be a little bit of a stigma in construction, particularly. We definitely have that here in the UK. I presume it's the same in Oz. People don't talk about things. They don't talk about mental health. Quite a macho sort of environment where no one will bring stuff up.
It's
like
weak
that.
to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, that's perceived, isn't it? So there is definitely. I think you've definitely hit on something here that's quite important. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about mental health a little bit later as we run through the podcast. But there's five things that I think we're going to focus on. We're going to look at strategies to increase work performance. We're going to look at stress and how we can manage and effectively combat stress with routines. We're going to look at your daily routines for tradesmen, how that's going to benefit your productivity, and we're going to look at developing a winning and successful mentality. And then we're going to talk about mental health. So we've got a lot to cover, and I think it's going to be really, really valuable for everyone. We have gone live over Facebook, so what I'm just going to do, just make sure I'm logged in, is I'm going to turn Facebook comments on. So if there's anyone on Facebook today that's listening and wants to comment, it's quite early for everyone. So we're at 7 o'clock UK time. So everyone's probably just setting up sites at the moment and getting things going. But if anyone's logged on or want to comment later, that's absolutely great. So so maybe first of all, Vinnie, maybe we could particularly talk about, you mentioned how there's some strategies that you recommend on how we can increase work performance. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So first, I think with work performance, let's dissect that and talk about what would be considered lack of work performance or a low work performance. And I think that comes down to two categories. I think energy levels, and physically energy levels, and mental clarity. And you might agree, or you might think there's something more or less, but I think with those two things, you can imagine if they're low, like low energy and low mental clarity, your work performance wouldn't be ideal. And on the other side of the coin, if they're both high, I think work performance would be high. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt.
Cool. So then let's start with, we'll go with energy levels first. So I think with energy, it comes down to three factors: nutrition, sleep, and stress. Now, I think I'm going to touch on all of them today, but I will start with nutrition first. So look, I think it's important, the advice I give today, I know this is primarily work performance stuff and performance stuff, but I do still like the advice that I do give, I do need to still consider some things in terms of the physique and weight side of things, just depending on the person. So that's why I wanted to just clarify that, because I don't want to give advice to people that increase their energy levels and then they've gained like 10 kilos of fat. So that's just why I just want to make sure that we're saying the right things here. But essentially, so let's just start with energy and let's start with nutrition. So with nutrition, I would think two factors of that will be considered with energy levels, and that's the amount of calories that you're consuming and the type of food quality, how high quality foods you're eating. So let's start with the calories. Now, with calories alone, it is one of the biggest factors that would influence weight. I know we're talking about energy, but I just need to say this first, that when we're eating in a calorie deficit, less calories than we burn, we want to, that's leaded to fat loss. So if you're someone that wants to increase your work performance, increase your energy, but also lose fat, this is my advice, you'd be in a calorie deficit. So eating an amount of calories that's less than you burn. Now, as you can imagine though, because you're eating an amount that's less than you burn, you've already kind of what's actually classified as an energy deficit. So you're already not as much high energy as you could, which is why food quality and the type of food you're eating is very valuable here. Because simply put, I'll give three examples of food quality. There's three types of foods essentially. There's unprocessed whole foods, which particularly have the most amount of nutrients from that particular food source. Then there's minimally processed foods, and then there's ultra processed foods, which is like the stuff that tastes really good, essentially. But let me give an example of the same type of food, but going through the spectrum of that. So let's just say pork. You guys eat pork in UK?
Yeah. Sausages, we love a sausage butty.
Beautiful. Okay, so with the example of pork, let's just say a lean pork that you get from the butcher. Now, nothing's been touched to that. So that would have the most amount of nutrients from a pork source. Minimally processed would be like ham, because things have like kind of been adjusted to it. And then ultra processed would be like bacon, for example. So on that spectrum, you would say that the pork would have the most amount of nutrients from that. And those nutrients are vital for our energy, our body's function, etc. So that's if you're wanting to fat loss and energy levels just through nutrition. Then if you're someone that wants to, I suppose, maintain their weight and increase their energy, then the same advice will be given, just you'd be consuming an amount of calories that is the same as you burn in the day. And obviously food quality higher, like the more the better with that. And then obviously if you're wanting to gain weight, gain muscle, or you don't really care too much about the weight, you actually just purely care about energy levels only, then I would recommend just eating in a calorie surplus, because that alone, you're already eating more energy than you're expending, which, as you can imagine, that's obviously what we need and what's good. But then if you combine that with high quality foods as well, then that's a magic with that. So that's kind of energy from nutrition alone. Did I cover that pretty well? Do you feel like that?
That makes complete sense. So, so I guess, well, I'm going to make this about me personally, because I'm always trying to be in a deficit,
Go for it.
because
Okay, go for it.
try to lose a few pounds. So, but that's interesting. So, what we're saying potentially here is that you obviously you want to lose a bit of weight because that's good for you, and you want to be in a deficit. But that's potentially going to affect your energy levels. So the only way to combat that is you've got to be in a deficit, but you've got to focus on the high quality foods to keep your energy levels high. Yeah.
Correct. So imagine this. Imagine if you're in a calorie deficit and the only thing you've eaten for the day is, do you guys have KFC in UK?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Imagine if you just had a Zinger box only for the entire day. Yes, you'd be in a calorie deficit. Yes, you probably would lose weight, but you'd also feel absolutely terrible. You'd feel exhausted. So with that example, I know that's completely going to like 100 with this example, but I hope that kind of makes sense that with consuming higher quality foods, you're actually getting more, being able to extract as much nutrients as possible from the deficit itself.
Yeah, no, completely get that. So here's the challenge in the industry, and I guess this is why this affects trade so much, because ever since I've grown up, we've had this culture of you go down the cafe at lunchtime for a fry up, and you're going in there, you're getting your eggs, bacon, sausages, beans, chips. Literally when I was younger, we used to eat that every single day, and you used to feel absolutely awful. You go back to site, you just couldn't work because you just had no energy. You just wanted to go to sleep. So so I guess the challenge is, from a practical standpoint, because we're busy and whatever else, how do we stop ourselves going down the cafe and getting a fry up, or going to KFC and picking something up quick? Or how do we get these energy rich foods in quick?
Cool. Great question. This will probably tie into routines that we'll talk about later as well, but I'll still bring it up now. But being prepared is probably the best thing that I can tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when you're not prepared, you're just like, okay, what am I going to have for lunch today? I don't have anything prepared. I don't have anything in my car or my lunchbox. I'm just going to go to the closest cafe and eat whatever the hell they have. And when you go to a cafe, or sorry, we call it cafe in Australia. Did you say cafe?
Caf, yeah. No, we're not sophisticated. Just caf.
Cool. No, it's fine. So when you go in there, you're probably not going to get the healthiest option alone. And even the healthier options probably have things that make it taste good, which isn't really, like, you don't know really what's in it. But if there's like a choice between a salad and a dim sum, most people are probably going to choose the dim sum, even if they know how bad they're probably going to feel afterwards. So from a practical standpoint, being prepared is the number one thing I think you should do. Something I give advice, and I suppose plans that I give my tradesmen clients, is two little strategies. One's a very worldwide known one, and it's not for everyone. It's a very simple tip, but it is preparing your meals beforehand, okay, and taking part in some sort of meal prep. Obviously, when someone just says, why don't you just meal prep and you'll be fine? I know that there's so many question marks about what to do, but again, that does help. But essentially, something that works really well for a lot of my clients is whatever they have for dinner, which is normally a higher quality meal, is their lunch the following day. Because you're going to cook anyway. For most people, they're going to cook anyway. You may as well cook two. Therefore, you don't actually have to go to the cafe or the caf to get that low quality food, and you've already got a higher quality food. So as I said, it ties into the first thing I said though. Being prepared is the number one thing here with that.
That's a great little tip. Yeah, thanks for that, Vinny. So I'm just going to I'm just going to type something in the comments because I want to do some markers here on what
that's fine.
About. So increase in energy by what we're saying by quality calorie intake. Okay, so that was number one then, was it? Or the first part of number one.
First part of number one. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what's the second bit of increasing performance?
So mental clarity. Now, mental clarity, for those who don't know, is basically just having a clear head, being able to increase their focus, and being able to reduce stress, which probably ties into our second point, what we're going to talk about anyway. But I'll bring it up anyway, though, because as you can imagine, yes, like imagine work performance and trying to perform at your best, but like you're overthinking, you're stressed. What's that going to lead to? Maybe not as much work as you possibly could, not as much, like you're not focused, you're probably not doing your job to the best of your ability as you can. That's just what I'm getting from work experience. Yeah. So with that, okay, I think this is a perfect point to lead into stress anyway. So first off, I think we should talk about why stress even occurs in the first place. Like, why do humans feel stressed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll bring it up back to, let's just go back to caveman days. Okay. So me and you, Greg, we've got our Fred Flintstone outfit on. We're walking out of our TP or tribe. Like, just imagine the first human that ever existed. Okay. Now, let's just say we're walking and we've just seen this animal for the first time. We've got that. Now, for us, we know that it's a lion, but back then it's the first time we've seen it. We have no idea what this animal is capable of. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is our stress response, which is our sympathetic nervous system, which is otherwise known as the fight or flight response, would activate. Now, the fight or flight response is when all our body's resources and blood flow go straight to our arms and straight to our legs. Okay, because our body's thinking we're actually going to fight this potential threat or flight, run away from this thing. Now, this is the thing though about the stress response. That's how it originated, from our bodies detecting threats and saving us in some sort of way. Essentially, it's the stress response is designed to prevent us from harm or death. That is simply put in a simple way.
Yeah.
Now, it was born a long time ago, but now that same response would occur, but we might be stressed over, let's say, being 5 minutes late to a meeting, for example.
Yeah.
Or we could be stressed of watching a horror movie. Now, this is the thing about our body. It doesn't know the difference between something real or something imagined. Okay. All it knows is there might be a potential threat out there. We get stressed, fight or flight activates, boom, we feel stressed.
Right.
So acknowledging that, I like teaching that to people because it helps them understand that, yes, you get stressed sometimes, but it also is your body protecting you, simply put. It's trying to prevent you from harm or death. That's basically essentially the stress response. But moving forward onto stress, one big thing I love telling people is no one's ever stressed over a specific situation. They're not stressed over a specific event or a specific person. They're stressed over their perception of that situation, person, or event. Now, if you listen to his podcast, rewind that and listen to it again, because that's something huge to understand, that it's not a specific thing that you're stressed about. It's your perception of the thing, which is why, let's say, Greg, me and you right now, this is a very safe environment for us to speak in. Yeah. But let's just say, for example, that I felt unsafe. Oh, sorry, that my perception of this was unsafe. Then I would feel unsafe.
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, if, let's say, we were in prison, that's mostly not just any prison, the prison that's on that Netflix documentary, World's Toughest Prisons, for example. Okay. Most would deem that's an unsafe environment. But if I felt safe in there, if my perception was this is a safe environment, I would feel safe.
Yeah.
Okay. It's crazy, but it's subtle, but it's good to know. Yeah.
We control our perception of that's the key, isn't it? To be able to step back and recognize that it's our perception of something. So sometimes I think when we're stressed, we're in the moment, aren't we? And you can't see past that, can you? It's
correct.
All about this fear that you've got. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And this is why I'm going to tie into something else here. And this is kind of bizarre at first, but this is why you sometimes can be the creator of your own stress because of your perceptions of things around you that are making you stressed. So, for example, a lot of people that suffer, let's say mentally as well, and this could be in stress or any way, generally comes from sometimes what their own, I'm not going to say their own fault, but like sometimes it is self-created. So, for example, one of the most common things I see with, let's say, my clients, for example, is they have a disconnect sometimes between their perceived reality and their actual reality. So basically what that means is what they think should have happened in their life and then what actually happened. And that disconnect creates a suffering in your head because you're like, why aren't I there yet? Therefore, you create stress and your perception of that has created the stress. I'll give an example on that though. So let's just say, for example, your business model is helping construction workers get to £1 million per year. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Perfect. Yeah. So imagine that someone said, I should have made £1 million this year, but coronavirus happened and I only made 300K. That disconnect between what they think should have happened and what actually happened is creating their own suffering. And therefore, because their perception of what they think should have happened didn't actually happen, then they created their own suffering and then their own stress.
Yeah.
And then lack of performance.
Got that. So how would someone like that combat that? It's reframing the way they're talking to themselves, is it? So rather than saying, I only made 300k. I done really well making 300k even in coronavirus. Is it something like that? Is it reframing the
Correct. It's hilarious because everything we talk about today ties into every single thing that we talk about today. So with that, I'm going to jump straight into the mentality part then. One of the parts I wanted to speak about in mentality. For that specific example, I'm actually glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up anyway. But so let's say, for example, it's good to have goals, like have big goals. Obviously, you want to make £1 million a year. Awesome. Okay. But something I will consider with that, and this ties into having a winning mentality, is knowing the difference between process and outcome. Okay, I'm not sure if people are familiar with this, but there's two parts of everything. There's an outcome that you want. So for people listening, most likely getting to £1 million per year business. The process is everything you need to do in order for that outcome to happen. Here's the thing though, you can't control the outcome all the time. Most likely never. You can always control the process. And what you do in the process to allow that outcome to happen. So the best example is pretend a boxer, for example, a fighter, okay? They, in the process, will train hard. They'll train long, many hours a day, many weeks ahead. They could prepare themselves as best they can to achieve the outcome of winning the fight. But at the end of the day, they cannot control what goes on in the ring. Simply put, they could best prepare themselves to get to a point where they can win. But at the end of the day, it's best man wins in fighting.
Yeah.
The same applies to anything else, especially with this goal of hitting £1 million a year. And a tool that I give my clients around this, because this can apply to anything. It can apply to business. It can apply to health perspectives as well. Like let's say someone wants to lose 20 kilos, but they've only lost 5. Okay, so this is their outcome is 20 kilos. They know what they need to do in the process to allow that outcome to happen, but sometimes they might feel far. So for the example I gave before about only being at 300K compared to 1 mil, what I would suggest is celebrate the hell out of getting to 300K, because at least you got to 300K. Even if it's more than last year, what happens if last year you were at 200K? Maybe 200 to 200 to 1 mil is a big jump, but 200 to 300, that's a 33%, 50% increase.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a tool that I give people. It's question 1, write down every single thing that your desired outcome that you want to achieve. 2, write down everything you need to do in the process for that outcome to potentially occur. And we say potentially because you've got to acknowledge as well that it's not always in your control to get that outcome. Yet it is in your control though to do everything you can in the process to allow that outcome to happen.
Yeah.
3, identify every single small win along the way. Okay, yes, I'm at 200K right now. Yes, my branding and profile, whatever the details that you actually go into with the coaching is improving than, let's say, 3 months ago. I'm getting more lead, whatever. I'm not sure the exact business model that you have. So yeah. I'm just trying to spit words out here. 4, make a promise to yourself that no matter what, you will keep working until you get towards that outcome. Because what identifying the small wins does is makes you feel closer, but then making a promise to yourself that you will always never give up and you will always do everything you can in the process to let that outcome to happen. What that does is, because in the process things can get slow, it can go up, it can go down. Like you can land 2 jobs and there's already half your income for the year, and then what happens for the next 4 months? You hear crickets, for example. So acknowledging that slumps occur and just making a promise that even through those slumps, you just keep going no matter what. Yeah. That's. I know we just jump straight from stress to winning mentality, but that there I think is huge, especially for your listeners.
That's really good, and I think that's really valuable just to break that down. So I think writing the processes down is a big stress relief in itself, I guess, isn't it? Because you're actually identifying, what steps you've got to take. I often give the illustration of I've got it in my book about how people climb Everest. And they've got this huge goal of getting to the top of Everest. But interestingly, on the way to Everest, there's base camps along the way. You've got these mile markers that you're going to aim for first of all. For some, it's just an achievement just to get to base camp 1, base camp 2, base camp 3. They all want to get to the top, but they don't all make it. Some might get right to camp 4 and weather comes in, and for the sake of their own lives, their next goal is, let me just get down off this mountain. But what an achievement. They've still got to, who gets to camp 4 of Everest, So, sometimes we can set these goals, but I guess it's about, I really believe in goal setting. I believe in the power of it, and the goals I set. It's amazing when I look back and think, wow, look. I never hit all of them 100%. So I do believe goal set's important, but yeah, I guess you got to be forgiving of yourself sometimes, haven't you? And think, look, I'm not always going to get there. I might. What do they say? Reach for the stars and hit the moon. So sometimes, you're gonna get
I
more.
like that analogy though. I like the analogy of Everest. That's a good way to look at it. That's actually, I think both what I said and what you said can actually tie into the same model. Like outcomes at the top, process is that the direction to the top, and identifying the small wins as a base camp. That's actually like, I'm actually maybe use that if you don't mind.
you can have that one for free. Good stuff.
No, it sounds good.
All right, that's good. So
now,
go on.
I'll go back to stress management because I've explained everything, but then I haven't explained how to relieve stress.
Yeah,
which is the main thing.
Yeah.
So because I don't know how we just jump forward and back, but anyway, let me know if I'm just continuing going on a tangent. But
no, you carry on.
As well.
It's all good. It's all
So with stress, we've discussed that how it occurs. Perceptions are huge. We've discussed in terms of suffering, some people create their own suffering from their perceptions of things as well. And also having a disconnect between what they think should happen, what that actually should happen. Yeah. So with actually back to that, as soon as someone says, I was supposed to XYZ, that's as soon as you've created a disconnect between where you're at and what you think should have happened. I was supposed to make £1 million per year, but then coronavirus hit, for example. What's the main sport that people play in the UK?
Football. And we'll call it football. We're not calling it soccer. We're calling it football.
No. Okay, cool. Look, I was meant to make the pro football team, but then I got injured and I couldn't make the team. That there's creating a disconnect between what's actually happened and what they thought should have happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that kind of making sense? This frame of mind, and then that there is linked to creating your own stress, and then that there's creating less mental clarity, and then that's creating less work performance, and we've just tied back to everything else from there.
That's
right. Okay, we'll talk about the magic though, about how to actually reduce stress. There's two primary ways I give my clients for this. One's a tool, like a bit of a framework that I give them in terms of questions and answers. It's really powerful. I'll go through it. And the second one is, I'll start with the first one. So the first one is a stress management framework that I give, and it's a bunch of questions. So the first question is write down every single thing that you are stressed about. Now you might hear me say this a lot about writing down things. There's a lot of power to it though. I don't know what it is. Like when you think things or when it's just not the same. You've got to write it down.
100%. So
write down everything you're stressed about, whatever it is at the time. Second thing, write down what you think the triggers are that's causing this stress. So this is how you can start becoming aware of perceptions and things like that. Now, let me give an example. Let's say you're stressed that you're not getting enough work, for example. What's the triggers of that? It could be relationship with money, for example, that when you have a lot of money in your bank account, you feel happy. When you have less amount of money in your bank account, you feel sad. So that's creating an attachment with money. Then therefore money is a trigger. That's why you're stressed.
Yeah.
Now that's just one example, but I hope that kind of just gives some sort of clarity behind it. 3, write down, is this controllable or uncontrollable? So for example, if you've lost jobs just because coronavirus happened, coronavirus is an uncontrollable force. You cannot control that. Okay, there's nothing you can do about that. So what I would say is, if it is uncontrollable, accept the fact that life is unpredictable, uncontrollable, and uncertain. Simply put. Okay? But if it is controllable, write down every single thing that you can do to make this a better outcome for you, which can probably tie into the other exercise I gave.
Yeah.
The last one's a funny one, the last question, but there's a lot of power to it. And it's be grateful for that stress occurring. Now let me explain. So you're turning a negative into a positive. And you ask yourself these questions. What's the benefit of this? What are you learning from this? And how will you become a stronger, better, smarter, wiser person because of this situation occurring? Now you've just flipped a negative into a positive. Now you're extracting it for what it is and trying to find every single positive and seeing how you're becoming a better man or better person from that. And I love going through people because you can see the stress for what it is, and then you can obviously extract the good out of it. That's number one.
Let me put this in. So I've never heard that said before. So be grateful for the cause of stress for what it's teaching you. Yeah.
Correct. Because how can you become a better person? Sorry, you're looking at this stress in a way that's actually teaching you something, that's making you learn something, and that there's making you become a better person because of that happening.
Yeah.
So let's say that event was to happen again, you're more switched on, you're more ready for it. And like, as you can see, you've just got more wisdom. Because think about it, like the things you stress about 10 years ago, you probably don't stress about it now because you've learned from it. You've extracted wisdom and information from it that's made you become what you are now. That's just one way to look at it. The second thing about stress, and this is probably the easiest thing that anyone can do. Now, as soon as I say this word, I think people like have two mindsets about it, which is fair enough. The word's meditation. Now, I know some people, like sometimes I tell my clients that and they're like, I'm not doing that. But then other people are like, I'm all in it. But let me explain why it's even important. So before I mentioned with stress that with our fight or flight response, which is our stress response, okay, that is what's called our sympathetic nervous system. Okay, sympathetic nervous system is responsible for fight or flight. Now, what meditation and breath work does is it's the quickest way to shift you from that to your parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic to parasympathetic, which is known as our rest and digest or rest, relax, recover. So think about it like this. Quickest way to shift you from fight or flight to rest, relax, recover.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's in the form of breathing, meditation. Don't think, like a lot of times people think with meditation that it's like a Buddha laying on top of the mountain with their arms like this or something.
Yeah.
That's not it. It's not like that. But just knowing that, like, and there's so much out there. You go on YouTube, go on Spotify. There's so many apps out there. Find what works for you. Yeah. I always recommend that to people because sometimes, some people like listening to a specific voice that makes them feel calm. That's cool. Find what works for you. But just know that is like basically that's the quickest way to shift you from stress to relax.
That's good. I'm glad you said
and
that. Finding what works for you. That's really important. I know. Just practical for my listeners. One thing I used to do, just if I had a really stressful day. I'm not into sort of sitting on a mountain, legs crossed and like a Buddha. But what really worked for me was taking a walk in nature and just really focusing on the sounds of nature, the sounds of the birds, just being really appreciative of as I'm going through this walk and just not thinking about work, but thinking about the nature and everything else. And literally, just felt your stress levels just drop, after that walk. So I guess for me, that was my time of meditation.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that, so being meditation is basically the act of being present, being in the present moment, not being in the past, not being in the future. So what you just described is another form of being present in the moment. Yeah. And that there is, yes, a form of somewhat meditation. Another good strategy and the tool that you can use, I think this might be said around, let's say, other mental health podcasts, things like that. But it is simple. And let's just say if you're someone that doesn't want to sit on the mountain, we'll just say that for now. But go for a walk out into nature. Something that's really cool is tapping into all 5 senses. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Okay. Sorry, I just have to think about the order of that again. Yeah. But doing that is tapping into all senses. Again, it's an act of being present. And that's helped a lot of people sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool. So just something else that you can use for, alleviating stress, being present in the moment. Because most people, when they're stressed, they're thinking about what they've done in the past or what they think might happen in the future. That's basically, that's just it in a nutshell, essentially. The funny thing about fear of the future and being stressed about fear in the future, and this is, I love this because it is, like, even I did this, to be honest. Greg, I'll be honest, this is my first podcast I've been on. Before I jumped on, I was scared. Not scared. I was nervous, just because I've never done this before and things like that. But this is the same, and I'm sharing this because this
you're a pro, you're a pro, mate.
this will apply to anyone in their life. Okay, it's the fear of future is so beautiful because every single person, the future doesn't exist. The only place the future exists is in your own creation of it. So you're basically creating your own stress, back to everything I've just said before. So acknowledging that the future doesn't exist, it's just your own creation of it. And let me ask you this. Do you know with 100% certainty exactly what's going to happen tomorrow?
Cool. No. Who does?
No one does. Exactly. Life is uncertain, unpredictable, and unknown. So why should I go guessing things and seeing what might happen, what might not?
Yeah.
It's just...
Completely get that. I mean, that's I think we do that in the industry. I know I did when you're running a business. You're always looking to the future and you think, what work am I going to have in 6 months? Am I going to be able to pay the mortgage? Am I going to be able to pay the bills? Can I keep this guy working? Can I pay my VAT bill and tax bill and things like that? You when you start going down that rabbit hole, you can just feel it. Your body just starts tensing up, doesn't it? And you can see how. I guess you just got to stop yourself in that moment, haven't you? And think, right, don't go down here. And I guess that's where what you talked about earlier, the meditation comes in, because you're present and you're recognizing how you stop yourself, and standing back and analyzing.
Perfect. And back to what you just said about going down into a rabbit hole from just one thought. As I was saying before, your body doesn't know the difference between something real or imagined. So think of it like this. If someone was running at you with a machete, for example, that's a fair enough reason to activate your fight or flight response. That's real. But imagined is like, let's just say we're watching a horror movie. Okay, we're not in the movie. We know the movie is fake. We're not even the character in that movie. But then our heart's pumping out of our chest. We're like, do not go in that room. Don't go in that room. The ghost is going to be behind that door. But we're scared. We're feared. Like, we've got that stress response. So it's just something unique to know, that your body doesn't understand the difference between real or imagined. It just thinks that there's a threat out there, whether you've just thought about this random future event that may not even happen, but that can create your own stress just from that. So realizing that and becoming aware when you do fall down that rabbit hole is huge, because then you can catch yourself out from stopping yourself from doing that.
Yeah, no, that's really, really, really useful, Vinny. So appreciate that. So we've covered a lot here today. I'm just looking at the time. So what did we cover? I guess we have touched on it a little bit about mental health challenges. We haven't really gone into depression, have we? Things like that. So how do you help people overcome sort of mental health challenges, particularly?
Okay, no, cool. So yeah, as I said before, like there's been a number of people that have gone through the program and having all these specific challenges. Now, I will say this, like, I'm not a registered psychologist. I'm not a registered counselor. So I do tell people that beforehand, that if absolutely needed, obviously go to professional help in that regard. But obviously, if I can help, I provide everything that I can with that. I think there's a few factors to this. Believe it or not, there is a new growing field called nutritional psychiatry, and I've been fully investing myself into that. It's just so unique, and so I'm not saying this is the absolute cure to things. It is something that helps, and this can tie into the high quality foods, back to nutrition again. So understanding this actually as well is our gut-brain connection. Now, believe it or not, our gut is our second brain. Okay, it's human second brain. Okay, it's crazy thought, I know, but basically our gut and our brain are intimately connected. Our gut will send messages to our brain will send messages to our gut. Okay, I actually think the percentage is like only about 10 to 20% of signals. Sorry, I'll just single cut it out again.
No, we got you.
Oh, cool. All good. So our brain will send 10 to 20% of signals to our gut.
Yeah.
But our gut sends 80 to 90% of signals to our brain. So essentially, if you're eating low quality foods, not the best foods all the time, then your gut health won't be optimal. Therefore, that's going to send, and that will lead to low gut health, lead to a troubled gut. Therefore, that will send a signal, 80 to 90% of signals to the brain, telling you that the gut is troubled, therefore the brain is troubled.
Right.
Okay. Now, on that more is there's a hormone in our body called serotonin. Now, serotonin is a hormone that regulates our stress, symptoms of depression, our mood, our focus, our energy, our sleep, a lot of things. I'm bringing this up though because more than 90% of serotonin is actually produced in our gut. So you can probably understand that when you're eating, your gut health isn't the best, therefore probably not much serotonin is produced, therefore more mental health challenges coming, such as, because when you have low levels of serotonin, that leads to high levels of depression, high levels of anxiety and stress. Right. So it's just something unique to understand. I'm not saying this is the cure for everything, but if you're someone that does, let's say, struggle with these type of challenges, it may be worth just adding the nutrition aspect to things, because then, like, with already what you're doing anyway. Because obviously I suggest actual mental health strategies as well. I've shared a couple of them today about, like, let's say stress, for example. Yeah. But just adding this is just a bonus. Like, there's no point doing all these other things. Let's say going to see a psychologist and all that. and then just eating KFC when you get home. Like, you want to do everything you possibly can in every avenue to make sure you're getting the best thing possible, or the best outcome for you.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's really interesting. So it's funny actually, because I did a nutrition plan with someone throughout lockdown, and one of the first things they made me do in the morning was take is it a probiotic? Is that what you call it? For gut health.
Yes, I've heard. Yep.
So it's and then, yeah, so he made sure that was the first thing I had to do, is just he
Cool.
focused on that, is get your gut health right, which I'd never really thought about before. You just think you just have to eat well, but he was let's focus on the gut. So yeah, interesting. It's something quite fascinating there. That's really good, Vinny. So have we couple of things that I just want to quickly cover. So we talked about daily routines for tradesmen. Now, obviously, the people that are listening to this and my ideal audience are normally really busy business people. So they're running their own business. They're probably on site at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, probably on site now, working through till 5 o'clock at night. How do they fit it all in? The gym and the nutrition and whatever else. What would be like a perfect daily routine, would you suggest for a tradesperson or a construction business owner?
Cool. I love this topic. So, few factors on routine. I want to start with this. Is following this sounds weird. I need to come up with a better name, but following a sandwich day routine. I'll explain, but anyway, it's at the start of the day, do something that serves you. In the middle of the day, serve other people, which is your work, and then finish the day with serving you again. Okay. I know I need a better name than sandwich, but let me explain. So let's just say if you woke up and you just went away straight away into serving other people, okay? Which is basically waking up, maybe checking your phone, responding to messages, and then rolling into the car and heading to work.
Yeah.
Let's just say with that example, or if you finish the day with serving other people, like the last thing you do in the day is actually just checking emails, doing quoting, or just working, and then you go straight to bed. I could probably guess that 99% of people will feel very unfulfilled in those moments. Like there's something missing. Like you've just worked and you've just gone straight to bed, or you just woke up and you've just gone straight to work. Yeah. You need to do something that serves you first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Now, this can come to a number of things. I know you mentioned exercise, nutrition, all that type of stuff. I will get there. But in terms of let's start with the morning. Okay, so what I would recommend is in your morning, back to what I was saying before, be as prepared as possible for your morning to win. Actually, I will say this as well. Like if you're someone that wakes up and checks your phone straight away, you've already kind of not lost, but let's just say everyone starts their day at 0. Okay, I've actually heard this from another podcast. I highly recommend it. I forgot his name. I need to reference him later. But it was really good analogy he brought up that I want to bring up on this podcast. That everyone pretty much starts their day at a 0. Now, if the first thing you do is check your phone, you've basically, then let's just imagine this. Actually, this is even funnier. If you're checking your phone first thing, Greg, would you let 100 people run into your room the first thing in the morning?
Of course not. No, you don't want to see me when I get out of bed.
That's basically what you're doing when you check your phone first thing. You're scrolling, you're seeing everyone's updates, and then you've essentially started your day at a -3.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't done something that's really fulfilled you. You haven't done something that served you. So then for the rest of the day, even for the rest of that morning, let's say you wake up at 6, by maybe 10 o'clock, you've finally got to neutral point. Whereas we want to start our day with a win, which is starting you at a +3.
Yeah.
Which is doing something that serves you. So to do that, to win your morning, it's best, like you might have heard, win the morning, win the day. Yes, that's relevant, but to win the morning, you have to win the night before. So that is preparing your lunch the next day. One of the best tips I can give to wake up to your alarm in the morning, if you're someone that struggles to wake up to their alarm, is put your phone in, like, let's say, out of reach from where you are in your bedroom, close enough so you can hear it, because if you have your alarm on your phone, but far enough away that you have to physically get up out of bed to pick up your phone.
Yeah.
Then once you're up, sometimes, because what can happen, I've definitely done this. I've woke up, I've done that hack, and I just jump straight in bed. Okay. So what you do instead is you pack your clothes right next to it. You put your clothes on straight away. I can guarantee if you've got your clothes on, you're not going to jump back in bed and check your phone. You've already got to start your day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one huge, like, because then you've already started your day in a win. Now you have those extra 5-10 minutes that you can actually do something that serves you, whether it is let's say listening to a podcast on your way to work, if you're someone that's really time strapped. Whether it's doing a workout in the morning, which some people find beneficial. A lot of my clients like doing their 30-minute workouts first thing in the morning and get it done for the day. Yeah. I don't normally do more than 30 minutes because it's unsustainable for tradesmen. Yeah. I like 20 to 30 minutes is just there. We just get a lot done in not a lot of time. There's obviously, because a lot of people are under the impression that you need to train hours and hours in the gym. That's not true. If you know how to train effective enough, you can cram it in 20 to 30 minutes. And at the end of the day, it is what's most sustainable for that particular person. If I tell you, you got to work out an hour every morning and you're just not getting enough sleep, it's not within your reach to even do, then you're not going to do it, and then your results are going to go backwards. You won't continue doing it because it's just too hard. Which is why you need to make do something that serves you.
Of course.
I think that's one of the biggest things with routines. That's just one of the things I wanted to bring up. Obviously, with your routine, there's a lot of things that you can implement depending on your goals. But I think just that standard framework that I just mentioned is just that can help a lot of people. For people that don't understand exactly what they need, I think that's perfect that they can just implement daily right now.
That's absolutely brilliant, Vinny. Yeah, I like that. One thing I don't know if you ever read the book Miracle Morning by Hal Elrond. Brilliant book because I
haven't, but I will jump on that. That sounds cool.
Great. Yeah, so he's all about same sort of thing. Win in the morning, or you got the 5 a.m. Club is a good book as well. I'm big on mornings. I always get up early, just naturally have. But one of the tips he gave to actually get yourself out of bed, exactly what you said. Put the phone. Make sure you physically have to get out of bed to turn the phone off. But he said, go and brush your teeth, because once you've brushed your teeth, like if that's the first trigger, go and brush my teeth. You're never getting back in bed again once you brush your teeth. You're up then and you're awake. No. And he said, have a big pint of water to get your mind work right, that sort of thing. So I think if you can get these little triggers and little routines in place, as soon as you're getting out of bed, you're setting yourself up for success, aren't you, for the rest of the day?
Correct. And it's so simple to do. Like it's not like you're taking up hours of your time. It's not even like you're taking up hours of your time to prepare for this. Like literally tomorrow morning after you watch this podcast, do that. Set up something. Even you said brush your teeth. Even cold showers. You have to have a real strong mindset to do that. But that's one thing. I'm not sure if it's winter or summer over there right now.
It's always winter in the UK. It's summer at the moment.
Okay, cool. We're the opposite. It's always summer in Gold Coast essentially. But so in my environment, a cold shower in the morning is okay because we're already hot. Maybe not so much for your environment because you're freezing already, so it's probably not good. But even just the act of having a shower in the morning, the same thing. It's stimulating you in some way. There's a lot of things you can implement in your morning. Obviously, there's way too many that I can just tell you right now, but I just think that framework can help a lot of your listeners just implement right now.
That's really good. And what about, so we covered sort of the front end of the day, the back end of the day, you touched on sort of making, preparing your meal potentially so that you can have that the next day. Any other tips for sort of back end of the day?
Yeah, good question. So we actually haven't touched sleep really as well, which kind of ties into this. So I think with the last hour of your day, it's very hard. I do understand that a lot of the listeners, they're probably working as soon as they wake up and working as soon as they finish. So for me to even tell them this, it's like, Vinny, I don't know if this is within my capacity to do. I do get that, trust me. I'm not asking you to, obviously start small. Go, let's say if you're working and then going straight to bed, then work, have 20 minutes spare, then go to bed. Then next day work, have 40 minutes spare, then go to bed. In the hours coming up to bed is very crucial for your sleep quality to be as high as it could, which means you'll be energized when you wake up in the morning, which means you'll have as much mental clarity as possible as well. So with that, I think with sleep, there's a few factors. One, meditation, again, okay? What I said before, as I said, it's the quickest way to shift you into a rest, relax, recover mode. So you may as well utilize that in the last 5 to 10 minutes before you go to sleep or as you sleep. There's one, literally search sleep guided meditation on YouTube. Just watch out for the YouTube ads. I've done this before where I've almost been asleep and then the ad comes up. Did somebody say KFC? And then I've just been woken up.
Dreaming about KFC all that.
And then I'm dreaming about the chicken nuggets. Oh, sorry, the Zinger Box and everything like that. But apart from that, just search something like a sleep guided meditation. Again, see what works for you. And also a night routine that I give a lot of my clients is another question and answer thing, but it will help and I will bring it up as well, is writing down. So a lot of the time before we go to bed, we're thinking, especially if we just worked, we're thinking about things that we didn't get done on that day, which means we're overthinking, which means we may stress a little, which means our sleep quality won't be the best, which means our energy levels in the morning will be crap, therefore ruin the day. Not ruin the day, but you're starting your day at a -3, for example. So writing down everything, like get your mind off, get everything that's off on your mind onto the paper of what you need to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. What you haven't done today, but what you need to do tomorrow. A really powerful thing, back to what I said with the stress thing, is writing down, let's say 5 to 10 things that you're grateful for. Think about things that money cannot buy as well. Okay. Because that's when especially maybe the men listening to this podcast, I know a lot of hungry, successful men, we're always in this never-ending race of, let's just say with money, for example, when we make $10,000, like our goal is to make $10,000. 10,000 pounds. I'll use your currency. Once we make 10,000, that's not good enough. We want to make 20. Once that's not good enough. We want to make 100, then a mil. Okay. And we're always in this never-ending race of something that's in front of us, but because our mind automatically creates that next thing that we need to work towards.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So being grateful for what you have right now, because I can guarantee it's something you only wish you had for maybe 1 year or 2 years ago. Right now, and it's very hard to feel any other emotion other than happiness, joy, freedom when you do write down, let's say, the things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Another thing, it's off my head, even pre-plan your day tomorrow for the next day. So at night, pre-plan your next day. Like at 6 a.m., I'm going to work out. At 4 p.m. when I finish work, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So you've already got a bit of a plan. I find doing that is huge because you're not guessing your way through the day. Therefore, you're not even making as much decisions that day.
Yeah.
There's a thing called decision fatigue, where the more decisions we make, the more mentally fatigued we get, therefore probably lack of performance when that happens. So imagine if you can make all your decisions when you're already tired the night before, therefore the day is going to just be smooth for you, a lot more smoother, for example. I think that's something that can help a lot before bed. This is a very generic tip, but it is true. Trying to limit electronics before bed, because electronics like phone, TV, all that stuff, even lights, they emit what's called a blue light.
Yeah.
Which the sun naturally emits blue light. Okay, that tells our brain that it's daytime.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at electronics that are lasting at night, our brain's still thinking we're awake, even though it's an artificial blue light. So it's something to understand as well. So I'd recommend something like the hour before bed, do some meditation or breath work, do that night routine that I just talked about, like you're pre-planning your next day. Do something that's not stimulating, like talk to your partner, for example, or your family. Like just try not to do something that's electronic, read a book even, whatever. Like just something that's not that you can just wind down and you've already focused. Like, because normally probably the hour before bed, we're still thinking about work. There's a lot of, definitely I know a lot of successful men and that's their mentality, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just something to consider that if your sleep's not the best,
yeah, of course,
that's probably something to consider.
That's really, really valuable tips there, Vinny. No, I really appreciate that. So if some of my listeners wanted to get some help with some of this, with the nutrition, with the tips to get a good routine in, with the workout routines, things like that, how would they get in contact with you, Vinny?
So I've got 2 places. My website, which is www.vincentvecchio.com, just my full name, just very simple. But I'm most active on Instagram as well, which is at The Unstoppable Tradesman.
Right. The Unstoppable Tradesman. That's perfect.
And that's a program name.
Great. That's it. That's brilliant. So, so if any of my listeners want some extra help there, we've got Vinny here that can certainly help you. The key, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you're interested in peak performance in business, but how much more important is peak performance in your own personal life and feeling well in yourself. So, Vinny, that's been absolutely brilliant today. You've been an absolute legend, given us some great tips there. So really appreciate that, and I know that's going to be of great.
Thanks for having me on.
If you'd like to work with me to fast track your construction business growth, then reach out on www.developcoaching.co.uk.